In the last episode of this Cape Lomond series, we introduced an enormous but really detailed regional sports complex. Today, we turn our eyes south onto some infrastructure, and that needs to be redeveloped to support some future growth. The basic diamond interchange here will be replaced with something a bit more likely to be able to cope with some significant higher traffic flows, and we'll be introducing some higher density buildings close by, so I don't want to be relying on this temporary diamond. I don't think it will cope. The design we're going for today, very unusual one, and it's strongly influenced by this one in Missouri. I've been looking for a reason to build this thing. It's just such a unique design, and I think we've got the perfect spot for it here. I've utilised the crisscross design of the divergent diamond interchange on one side of the freeway, and on the other side I'll use a double roundabout to distribute traffic on and off the various local roads. I'm going to run through the build today. We'll get it operational, we'll get it looking good, and once we're done that, we'll take a minute or two towards the end to chat about whether it might be a good fit in your city as well. So let's get rid of that existing interchange first. I've taken it back quite a bit, so there's plenty of room to work with. Usually it's a bit more of a tidier workspace if we just get rid of these trees as well. The one consideration to keep in mind here is that the elevation will be lower, as you would expect, as we reach the sea level, and there's not a massive amount of space to work with over here on this other side of the highway. I look to get as much of the slope done as possible where we're actually bringing the bridge across and over to the water side. This should hopefully prevent excessive slopes or some crazy elevation drops, but we'll need to see how that pans out. I'm going to use the roads as a guide, really just to kind of get a handle on the different elevations. Then a little bit of trial and error should probably be required here, and yeah, we're just going to nail down those elevations with the road tools really. Once I'm happy with the heights on each side, it's just a case of creating a bit of a platform, again on both sides, and we'll join it up as a bridge. It's always worth using the slope tool before doing big roads like this, and we get rid of all the random bumps on the road. I did notice a slight dip on one of the bridges. Despite my best efforts to sort of sugar it in place with Move It, neither the elevation changes or the manipulation mode would really give me the level road I was looking for. So in that kind of scenario, just delete it and redraw it, and we'll hope for the best. And it went back in looking alright. So the bridge section has now given us the basis of an interchange to start building off. I wanted to get the divergent diamond side done first. This will be pretty straightforward, but it might be a challenge getting the ramps done. They are a bit awkward going over the rail lines. The best way of getting the lanes crossed over is just using a complex curve on each side, and then we just use the guidelines to bring them in. I'm not stressing out too much about exact measurements. As long as they roughly match on each side, it should look pretty symmetrical. I'll need to make sure traffic is going in the right direction and stick a single traffic light in there once it's all in place. There's nothing wrong with how this is looking at the moment, but I reckon stretching out the nodes a little at this crossroad should provide something of a smoother looking curve. So I'm happy with the DDI crossover element of it now. Let's crack on. Getting the on and off ramps on for the DDI, divergent diamond interchange lanes, can be a little tricky. I guess the trick here is to have a rough idea of where you want the road to point, and after you've merged the two lanes, because this road will be joining up to the ramp, if you can get them joined with one big simple curve, that'd be ideal really, as it'll just be pretty straightforward and it will always look nice and smooth without too much messing about. With the initial placement of the ramps in order, a little bit of lane math should help, and these main roads with the crossover should be bumped down a lane in each direction. I'm going to try and connect the first of the ramps here. I'm just going to terraform it and try and see if we can get a nice smooth connection coming from the ramp up to where we are joining in the interchange, and that wasn't smooth, so we're going to bring the terraforming up a little bit, bring the ground level up a bit. We'll try that again, and hopefully, yeah, perfect. That's looking really nice. Over on the other side of the interchange, I'm going to sort out the ramp here too. So taking the starting point from the existing pillar is easy enough to complete the road and join it up at a higher ground level. That went in perfectly straight first time, brilliant. And I'll need to remove the pillar on the railway track, but yeah, that was ideal. On the roundabout side of the highway, prep the ground by providing a slope for the on-ramp, and I smoothed out a general slope towards the water. The idea here is to build the roundabout elements on a bit of a slope. It'll have its own challenges when it gets to detailing, but it should look quite nice. I took the arterial road crossing over there right the way back to the bridge section. Again, we don't have too much room to play with here, so just more to get a bit of breathing room more than anything else. The first roundabout is going to be a 2-lane, and this one will be clockwise. So 1 lane will give a turnaround facility for the traffic if it's required. The outside lane, the second lane, will give access directly to the adjoining second roundabout. And that second roundabout will be a 1 lane, and that's going to work in an anti-clockwise direction. This second roundabout will give the access to the various local roads on that side of the map, and kind of acts like a feeder to the main interchange for those local roads as well. So with these roundabouts going in different directions, they're essentially working like a cog in the machine. After getting the roundabout in place, it was pretty clear that it was just too tightly bunched together, so I moved it, shifted all the circles back a bit towards the water, and it gave me a bit of a room to introduce the 2-lane sections just before the bridge, where it can create a dedicated connection and the lane for the on-ramps and whatnot. So and obviously do the same on the other side. With that on-ramp, the left turning traffic joins straight onto the bridge, and everything else is distributed by joining directly into that second roundabout. On the other side, I'll need to build up the land a bit and smooth it out. The section coming off the bridge is pretty straightforward, just a simple curve was fine there. And again, all the other traffic will be served by that first roundabout, so I created a nice curvy road to complete the access for that off-ramp. Now that created a bit of a janky looking section down there, but that's no problem at all. It's just simply a detailing opportunity for later. I promise you that will come out looking great. Time to get the local roads hooked up to the feeder roundabout now. So I took out the little road next to the junction there. There was no need to have as many connections, and I might as well take the second one on the left out too, but keep it for now as it joins the coastal road not that far down the road. I wanted to keep that main road on this side clear, so I went ahead and applied some grass verges on either side of the junction. With the main functionality of the interchange in place, we can have a look at how the traffic flows. Obviously, not a lot of traffic to look at yet, but you know, we've got a few cars here and there and it's looking okay. I might spam zone some better traffic, and we'll maybe hook up some traffic spawners at the end of the video and we can see if we can get it moving a bit. And it always looks a bit better with these things in full flow, doesn't it? It's time to make this look a little bit better. Initially I was planning on using a bit of key wall on the ramps, and take a wee bit of time and we'll get it all smoothed out. You can use a couple of tools to do that, either the smoothing tool or the slope tool. It can be a bit tricky to get the ground formed just the way you want, particularly if you don't have a lot of space to work with and if the slope is quite steep. So although this section came out looking not too bad, you'll probably see me revisit this and the key wall a wee bit more expansively later on. Obviously we can't have a massive wall on the highway underneath, so we're going to carefully move that node back a bit and we'll try and keep that bridge as straight as possible. I'm pretty happy with all the curves, but I'm going to come back to those key walls now and I'm going to add them to all the main ramps, both inside and the outside sections too. As I said earlier, I want to revisit those walls and get a bit more concrete shown, but it also looks pretty nice and adds a bit of detail and action with the extra safety barriers. Once the key walls are ready, I'll look to bring the ground elevation down in the section between the ramps and the lower highway and form something of a man-made drop, so a decent elevation drop. But using the combination of the flatten tool, sloping tool and the soften, these 4 little walled sections will create a tiny bit of detail and interest on their own. I added some sound barriers, but I don't want to go too overboard with them. I'll create a little marker where I want to add them, or end them rather, and we'll just convert them back to normal roads at the marker. We'll just delete the markers once we're done. Over on the other side of the road, I'm going to expose the key wall again. Again, taking the time to get it all looking good. I'm always looking for a smooth transition on the slope coming up from the lower highway and up to the built environment we're introducing here. I would encourage you, if you are doing your own interchanges, take the time to get the terraforming right. It does make a huge difference to the final product. Assuming you're not planning on replacing it anytime soon, it is always worth the time. These are big features and they'll be in your city to the end, you know. The off-ramp, that was messy and needed to be sorted out. Almost forgot about it. I took all the way back and tried a simple single curve, and you know, much to my surprise, went in first time, which is nice, so I'm going to take that. So just a few bits and pieces to tidy up in terms of the terraforming now, and I really need to take a minute and find out how to delete some of these spawners for the deers. It is getting a bit out of hand now, isn't it? There are a few things we can do to make this look pretty. I'm going to use the bus lane net tool, and we're going to use that as a border, much like the real life example that this interchange is based on. Just a case of plunking it down and nudging it into place when we move it. And I'm going to repeat the process for the second roundabout as well. One piece of advice I would give you if you're building curvy roads on slopes is once they're all in place and you're happy with the layout, try not mess about with the ground elevation or move it too much. Can cause jank in the road which cannot be fixed easily, and it might mean going back to an earlier save or deleting it and having to redraw it, which isn't ideal. So yeah, once you got your road layout in place, try not mess about with it too much. I'm going to use that roundabout trick from the last video again, and thanks to Piccana for sharing that once more. Then we'll create the node, place the roundabout in it, and then using the transform tool, we'll pop it in its place. This will be placed on a slope, of course. I'll need to rotate it a little bit so it's not hidden underground. These new roundabouts are basically free detailing, but obviously you can amend it any way you want. You can remove the trees, add them, add props, bushes. Now you can change the colours on them as well, which is nice. So same idea for the second one. We're going to use a bigger one this time. And that made me laugh. I've been getting alerts set up for the live streams, and obviously I still had my live stream settings on OBS when I was recording. So this alert had shown up in the recording. So yeah, well, welcome to the channel, Dr. Spock. Thanks for subscribing, hope you're well. That's an unexpected shout out. A couple of trees, bushes, and a final tidy up is in order here, and I reckon we can move on to the next bit of detailing soon. I'm going to use a trick I've done in the past to expand the footprint of the interchange. I'll be creating something of a concrete webbed effect in some of the corners. So selecting the path, I'm going to create a little smooth curve that I can surface around. I can just trace it using the snapping tools, and once the path itself is removed, we'll be left with nice smooth effect in that corner, in that part of the interchange. And I'm going to pick a few spots where I want to add these things. There will be a few gaps to fill with the concrete surfaces, mostly around the roundabouts and maybe between the upper roads. On these concrete gaps, it was super awkward to add any type of fencing, barriers or walls, So I've gone for concrete looking planters, and I'm just going to add the smallest palms in each one, and these will kind of match the massive palms that we've got in each of the roundabouts. A little hedging finish to finish things off on this side, and I'll repeat the pattern over on the DDI side as well. There were a few last minute adjustments to the detailing here. I had asked Algendo if it would be easy enough to do a surface that matched the pink bus lines, and sure enough, he delivered. So here I'm going to use the fill tool and replace the existing filler surfaces with the tile or brick effect, and I'm going to add the new pink surface on top of that, and it gives some nice texture when you're zoomed in. I went ahead and added a few little triangles where the roads join the second roundabout. I used the new recolor mod again this week to find a matching colour for the roundabouts, and I just want one of the inner bands matching, on each. We won't go too mad with this, and it'll give us some nice matching concentric circles in here. Everything else on that roundabout, I'm just going to leave as is. I got the road connected, nothing fancy, just created a single node and fed the dual lanes basically into that node. I might redevelop parts of the road network later on, or maybe not, I don't know, but a lot of the main arteries tend to be dual lanes, don't they? So it might be a little bit more fitting and a little bit more realistic, I guess. The space is there, we've left space for additional networks and redevelopment, so yeah, I'll make a decision on that a bit later down the line. So you might be looking at this and asking yourself, is it any good? And should you use it in your city? Well, the answer is, it kind of depends. The double roundabout element of this interchange does not handle traffic very well at all. I've ran it in the interchange test map and it does perform very poorly. That said, it does look really good. It's fairly compact, it doesn't take up much space, and if you have a part of the map where is only going to get a finite amount of traffic, much like this spot beside the sea, then yeah, go for it. It works perfectly well with lower traffic numbers. On the other side of the interchange, or the other part of the interchange, that two-phase diverging diamond element of the build can handle a ton of traffic. It's tried and tested, so no issues there on that side, and that side of course will be the busy side as we expand the suburban downtown and indeed get onto the downtown proper to the south. So if you have a lopsided traffic requirement where it's going to be really busy on one side and really quiet on the other, then yeah, could be a good show. As always, shout out to my supporters on Patreon and YouTube, and everyone who might have contributed on the live streams. I really appreciate every single one of you. So thank you all so much for watching. Have a great week, and here's a couple more videos for you to check out.